Hello everyone, I'm Jayashree. Welcome to my channel and to this tutorial for this crochet cardigan with the rounded hoodie included. So the size that I'll be making is, well, it's according to my own body measurements. And well, of course, you'll do the same as well. You'll use your body measurements to make your cardigan. It's really an easy pattern to follow along with, and I hope that I made this tutorial really easy for you, especially when it comes to the rounded hoodie. I hope you enjoy this tutorial, and if you haven't already subscribed, please do support my channel by subscribing, liking and commenting, which I really do appreciate. Yes, hope you enjoy this tutorial. Let's begin. Begin with a slip knot. So for purposes of this demonstration, I'll just work a little swatch, but in your case, you'll work the length of chains to the length of the cardigan that you want it at. So what I did for my cardigan, I measured from my neckline to the length, going down to the length that I wanted my cardigan at, and that was the length of chains that I worked towards. So again, for the purposes of this demonstration, my swatch is just going to be a little short swatch. So then it's chain a number of chains to get to the length of your cardigan. In my case, I'll be chaining 24 chains plus 1. Now, okay, so you'll first chain that length, get your length correct, and then you need to count the number of stitches and make sure it's in multiples of 4. Now I have 26 chains and I'm looking for a multiple of 4. I could work to 24 chains, so that means I have 2 extra chains. So I'll remove the 2, but then again I need to chain 1 because it's in multiples of 4 plus 1. So that then I have 25 chains. Like again, work to the length that you want it at, and it will be make sure that your chain is in multiples of 4 and then add on 1 chain. Round 1. Now generally when we're working, we always work our stitches into the chain as you see it here, but in this case I'll turn my chain to the back and I'll work my stitches into those little bumps that you see along the back of the chain. So here it's into the 4th chain from the hook, double crochet. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'll turn my chain around. So to double crochet, it's yarn over, insert the hook into that little bump, and you may need to help it get through, and then it's pull up a loop, yarn over, go through 2 loops on the hook, yarn over, go through 2 loops on the hook. Then it's continue working double crochets into that little bump at the back of the chains to the end of the round. Continue to the end of the round. I've completed round 1 with those double crochets. Round 2, chain 3, 1, 2, 3 and turn. Then it's skip 1 stitch into the next stitch, work 3 double crochets all into that 1 stitch. So that was 1, 2, 3. Then it skip 2 stitches and into the next stitch work 3 double crochets all into that one stitch. So that's 1, 2, 3, and you'll skip 2 stitches, 3 double crochets into one stitch, skip 2 stitches, work 3 double crochets into one stitch to the end of the round. I'm at the end of round 2, and you'll see here that I've got 1 stitch remaining, and then here's my chain. So that chain, I didn't mention the chain 3s will count as a stitch. So in actual fact, I have 2 stitches remaining. Now I'll skip 1 stitch, and into that chain right in there, that's little space, I'll work a double crochet. Round 3, chain 3 and turn. Now here I'll work my stitches into the center of the 3 double crochets. So that center double crochet is where I will work all my stitches for round 2. So here into that center of the 3 double crochets, I'll work a double crochet, chain 1, double crochet all into that 1 stitch. Then again into the center of that 3 double crochets, the center double crochet, I'll work a double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. And you'll continue with the stitch pattern to the end of the round. So I'm at the end of round 3, and to end the round I'll work a double crochet into that space that's formed here, right, with our chain 3. Round 4, chain 3 and turn. Now for round 4, it's basically a repeat of round 2. It's just that I'll work my 3 double crochets into this chain 1 space from the previous round. So I'll work those 3 double crochets into that space, and I'll continue to the end of the round. It's 3 double crochets into those chain 1 spaces. So I'm at the end of round 4, and to end the round I'll work a double crochet into that space here right at the end. Round 5, chain 3, 1, 2, 3 and turn. So here what I'll do is I'll work double crochets into all the stitches all across. Continue with those double crochets to the end of the round. So I've completed round 5 with those double crochets. I then chain 3, turned, and I completed round 6 working double crochets into all stitches, which is just a repeat of round 5. So I've continued on, and all I've done is repeat round 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. I've worked those rounds until the width of my piece measures my shoulder to shoulder measurement plus 2 inches, and those 2 inches is just to loosen up on the cardigan. So there's just one thing I must mention before moving on. Okay, so when I started off, I started off with round 1, which was a round of double crochets, and then I worked the patterned bit, round 2, 3, 4, and then it was 5 and 6, which was double crochets. But as you see, as I ended off with 2 rounds of double crochet, and that was because I needed to get to my shoulder to shoulder, and plus those 2 inches, the measurement. So I did eventually have to work 1 more round of double crochet on the other side, just for that uniformity. I am slightly over on my shoulder to shoulder measurement plus those 2 inches, but that's okay. I'd rather be slightly over than shorter on that length, because what happens, it will tighten up your cardigan, and you'll notice it especially if you've made it longer than your hip. Okay, so make certain that if you do need to work extra rounds of double crochet right at the end, you will have to work the same on the other side. That means you'll have to reattach your yarn on the other side and work a round of double crochet. I hope that makes sense. So the whole idea is to end with a round of double crochet. You wouldn't want to end on a round 2, 3 or 4 round repeat. Rather work, if you need to lengthen on the shoulder to shoulder measurement, rather work a round of double crochets instead of repeating the pattern, continuing to repeat the pattern. So just for that uniformity. Now, before moving on to the front side panels, I do need to place stitch markers for my neckline and my armhole depth measurements. Now you'll see I've got 4 stitch markers that I've placed along the width of the piece, and that's along the shoulder to shoulder measurement right at the top. So the 2 stitch markers that you see here marks off the neckline, and for that measurement what I did was I folded the piece in half, and that measurement I measured 2 inches, and I placed 2 stitch markers opposite each other here, marking off the neckline, which is a total of 4 inches. So here it is. Now the 2 stitch markers that you see on the outer sides of the neckline, that serves as a guide. So what I did was, from my stitch markers that marks off the neckline, I counted my rounds. That was 1, 2, 3, 4, and I placed a stitch marker. And on the other side I did the same. It was round 1, 2, 3, and 4, and I placed a stitch marker. And like I said, it serves as guides, because when we're working our front panel, I'll be working double crochets to that stitch marker, and thereafter I'll work the stitch pattern and so on, but you'll see as we get there. Okay, so now that our neckline markings have been set out, we'll move to our armhole depth. So along the length of the cardigan, from the top, from that top where we've marked off our neckline, we'll measure okay, let's see. So I'm making a size medium, and the armhole depth for a medium is 19 centimeters. So from the top I've marked off 19 centimeters and placed a stitch marker at that measurement. I then counted the number of stitches that I have from the top to my stitch marker, and I'll mark off that on the other side, counting my stitches this time. So if we look at the other side, here I have the same number of stitches. I just counted off the stitches, which was 26 stitches, and I placed a stitch marker. So I've got my armhole depths marked off on either side of the cardigan. Moving on to the front panel of the cardigan, which we will work attached to the cardigan, to the back panel, sorry. Okay, so here I have I'll be working it along the length of the cardigan. So if you see here, here's my neckline that I've marked off, and here's my armhole depth. So right at the bottom, starting at the bottom, right here, I'll attach my yarn. Attach yarn to that chain 3 right at the end. Then it's chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and I'll work double crochets all along the length to that stitch marker that's marking off the armhole depth. I've continued on with round 1 of the front side panel, and here I'm right at the stitch marker marking off my armhole depth. So at this point, you've already counted the number of stitches that you have. In my case, I counted 26 stitches. Well, the number of stitches you have depends on the tightness of your stitches and also the armhole depth and the size you're making. So you'll take into account the number of stitches you have. Now in my case, I have 26 stitches from my stitch marker to the top of my piece. I'm just before that stitch marker that's marked off, so I'll chain 26 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and you continue to the number of stitches that you have here, and I'll chain my 26 stitches. I've chained my 26 stitches. Then you'll chain a further 2, which is our turning chain. 1, 2, round 2 of the front panel, side panel, into the 4th chain, double crochet. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and again I'll be working into the back of the chain, into those little bumps that you see at the back. So I'll work my stitches into those bumps at the back. So continue with double crochets to the end of the chain. I've worked the double crochets into my chain as you see here. Now I'll just have to continue on with double crochets right to the end of the round. So here you may have to turn your piece around in order to align this portion here well with your stitches. And you'll continue with double crochets right to the end of the round. So I've continued on working my front panel, and all I did was chain 3, work double crochets into all stitches, turn, chain 3, double crochets into all stitches, and so on for as many rounds as when I fold my piece over the front panel, over and on top of the back panel, lining up the armhole edges, it should be in line, end up in line with my stitch marker, that first stitch marker that's here, that you see along the neckline. So here, if you look closely, let me just turn it around. So here's my 4 stitch markers, 1, 2, 3, 4. Those 2 in the center are marks of the neckline, and then here's my gauge for my front panels. So it must end in line with that first stitch marker. So then I'll work 4 more rounds, and it will be a repeat of round 2, 3, 4, and 5, and that will end off my front panel. I've now completed the repeat of round 2, 3, 4, and 5, and that completes my first front side panel. I'll fasten off and cut off this excess yarn. You'll now repeat these steps to work the front side panel on the other side. We'll now join the shoulder seams here right at the top. So it's the front panel attached to the back panel at the shoulder. And I've got my yarn and needle. So I'm just going to seam the 2 sides together, or the 2 edges together. So continue until you get to that second stitch marker, and it should line up with that second stitch marker. I've completed seaming up both the shoulder seams on either side of my shoulders, and you can see that I've left a portion of it unstitched. I've only stitched to that outer stitch markers on either side. So here I've got a portion left unstitched. And as I said, that would help with our hoodie. Round 1 of the hoodie. Now I'm beginning right at the top at the neckline, and at the moment this is what it looks like. I bring it all together. So on the one side of the neckline, I'll attach my yarn. And then it's pull up a loop, chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and here I'm working double crochets all along the neckline edge of the sweater. So from the one side here all along to the end right here. There isn't any actual stitches to work with, so I'll just gauge and I'll make certain that my stitches are spaced evenly along. There may be times where you may have to work 2 stitches into these spaces, and that's fine, just as long as everything is uniform, your stitches are uniform, like you don't have one that's spaced too far apart or so, and they just need to look uniform as we go along. So continue to the end of round 1. So I'm at the end of round 1 for the hoodie, and I'm right here. I've worked that last double crochet, then it's round 2, it's chain 3 and turn. Now again you'll work double crochets to the end of the round. I've completed round 2 of the hoodie. So round 3, chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and turn. Now here for round 3, I'll work a decrease right at the start and a decrease right at the end. So to work a decrease, again, it's yarn over, insert your hook into the stitch, pull up a loop, insert your hook into the next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, go through 3 loops on the hook, yarn over, go through 2 loops on the hook. Then you'll continue with double crochets until you get to the last 2 stitches right at the end of the round. I'm at the end of round 3 with 2 stitches to go, a stitch and that chain 3, which counts as a stitch. So it's yarn over, insert your hook into that stitch, pull up a loop, insert your hook into that space in between the stitch and the chain 3 at the end, pull up a loop, yarn over, go through 3 loops on the hook, yarn over, go through 2 loops on the hook. Round 4 is a repeat of round 4, and round 5 is a repeat of round 3, where I'll work the decrease and my double crochets and a decrease right at the end. So I've continued on, and all I've done was chain 3, work double crochets across, come to the end of the round, chain 3, turn, work double crochets across, come to the end of the round, and so on. Okay, I've worked to a length where this hoodie part, it's to the length of, if I measure from my neckline to the top of my head, or rather to the crown, that's the length of my hoodie that I've worked to. So just to give you an example, it's around 20 centimeters from the top to that neckline. So including those decreases, the rounds where we had made the decreases right at the start, it all includes that as well. So that's, for me, it's 20 centimeters, and the width of my hoodie is around 36 centimeters. So you'll work as many rounds of double crochet as need be to get a length that's from your neckline to the top of the head or to the crown of the head. Fold along the width, the top edge of the hoodie, fold that in half and place a stitch marker into the folded edge of the hoodie, the top edge, like so. So I've marked off the halfway point of that, the width of the hoodie. So once you've got the center, the halfway mark on your hoodie, you'll continue on. So what I've done is I've just continued with the chain 3, turn, and I've worked my double crochets to 2 stitches before that center stitch marker. So there's 1, 2, and here's my stitch marker. So into those 2 stitches, I'll work a decrease, only this time I'll work it with a single crochet. So insert your hook into the stitch, pull up a loop, insert your hook into the next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, and go through all 3 loops on the hook. And then it's a single crochet into that stitch marked by the stitch marker. So it's insert your hook into that stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, go through 2 loops on the hook. And then into the next 2 stitches after the stitch marker, I'll work another decrease using a single crochet. So it's insert your hook into the first stitch after the stitch marker, pull up a loop, insert your hook into the next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, and go through all 3 loops on the hook. Then I'll continue with double crochets to the end of the round. So I've continued on with double crochets to the end of that round. There's just one thing I would like to say just to make it a bit easier. So into that stitch, that center stitch, replace that stitch marker back into that single crochet that you had just worked. And I think that it will be easier if you continue to replace the stitch marker into the single crochet as you work along. So now we know that here's the center stitch. Okay, for the next round, it's chain 3, and turn. Work double crochets to 2 stitches before that stitch marker at the center. I've worked those double crochets again to 2 stitches before the one that's marked by the stitch marker. Into those 2 stitches, I'll work a decrease using single crochets. So it's insert your hook into the first stitch, pull up a loop, insert the hook into the next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, go through all 3 loops on the hook. And then into that next stitch marked by the stitch marker, I'll work a single crochet. So it's insert the hook into the stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, go through 2 loops on the hook. And then you'll replace the stitch marker into that stitch that we've just worked. Into the next 2 stitches after the one that's marked by the stitch marker, I'll work a decrease. So it's insert the hook into the stitch, pull up a loop, insert the hook into the next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, go through all 3 loops on the hook. Then it's continue with double crochets to the end of the round. I've continued on and I've worked that decrease round for a total number of 8 times. Now it would be pointless of me repeating the round for the 8 times, because all I did was chain 3, turned, worked those double crochets to 2 stitches before the stitch marker, then worked a decrease using single crochet, a single crochet into the stitch marked by the stitch marker, and then into the next 2 stitches on the other side of the stitch marker, worked a decrease using a single crochet, and then it was double crochets to the end. And like I said, I've repeated that 8 times in total. I'll now fasten off, leaving a long enough tail to help with the seaming up of the hoodie. So to seam up this edge of the hoodie, I'll bring the 2 sides together, and I can remove that stitch marker as it's no longer needed. And then with my needle on my tail end of the yarn, I can seam along the edge. I've completed the seaming of the top edge of the hoodie, and you can see it's got a nice rounded edge. So that's done. We'll now work the sleeve, and we'll attach our yarn to the underarm of the armhole space. So right at the bottom here, find the stitch. Now if you look at it, you'll see right at the end the stitches are a bit slightly more difficult to see. So I'm going to begin right there where I see a stitch clearly visible. So attach your yarn at that point, pull up a loop and chain 3. 1, 2, 3. I'll now work double crochets all around the armhole, and at the end I'll show you what to do. So work those double crochets to the end of the round. I'm at the end of round 1 for the sleeve, and you can see that I've got some space left behind here before the end, before I can slip stitch and join. So what you need to do is count the number of stitches that you've worked for round 1, because in order to work the stitch pattern, our stitch count must be in multiples of 3. Now I've counted the stitches that I've worked. I've included in my counting the chain 3, which counts as a double crochet. So I have 51 stitches. Now 51 is a multiple of 3. However, I do have some space remaining. So into that space, I'll work 3 more stitches to give me my multiple of 3, which is 54 stitches. So that was 1, 2, and 3. So right at the end of the round, you'll adjust your stitch count there, right at the end, to get your stitch count to a multiple of 3. And then it's slip stitch into that third chain from chain 3 to join. Pattern is the same as we had worked for the back body and the front. I'll chain 3, and into that same stitch as chain 3, I'll work 2 more double crochets, all into that same stitch from where the chain 3 comes out of. Then it's skip 2 stitches, 1, 2, and I'll work 3 double crochets into the next stitch. Skip 2, 1, 2, 3 double crochets into the next stitch, and you'll continue to the end of the round. I've continued on, and I'm at the end of round 2. I have 2 stitches remaining, so I've worked my stitch pattern here, the 3 double crochets into 1 stitch, 2 stitches remaining. I'll slip stitch into that third chain from my chain 3 that I had started off with. Then it's slip stitch into the next, that first double crochet, and chain 3. 1, 2, 3. Chain 3 counts as a double crochet. Then it's chain 1, and I'll work a double crochet into that same stitch from where I had worked that chain 3 and chain 1. Then it's into the next set of double crochets, the center of those double crochets, I'll work a double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. Again, into the next set of double crochets, that center double crochet, I'll work a double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, and you'll continue to the end of the round. I'm at the end of round 3, and I've worked the double crochet, chain 1, double crochet into that center of the double crochets from the previous round. So to end the round, I'll slip stitch into the third chain from our chain 3 that we had started off with. Then it's slip stitch into that chain 1 space, chain 3 counts as a double crochet, and then work 2 more double crochets into that chain 1 space. So for round 4, we'll be working 3 double crochets into all the chain 1 spaces. Continue to the end of the round. I've completed round 4, and actually I'm at the end of round 4. To end the round, slip stitch into the 3rd chain from chain 3 to join. Now for round 5 and round 6, which is the same again as we've done for the back body panel and front body. Round 5 and round 6 is just rounds of double crochet. So I'll chain 3, 1, 2, 3 for round 5, and I'll work double crochets all across. At the same time, as we know, the sleeve tapers as we get towards the wrist. So working from the top to the bottom, the sleeve would taper off. So in order for the sleeve to taper off, we need to work decreases. So round 5 will be our decrease round. Not every round 5 repeat, it will just be certain round 5 repeats, depending on the fit that you're looking for. So you would have to fit on the piece and make sure that the sleeve isn't too loose or too tight. And then you'll decide from there whether you'd like to work a decrease in the round 5 repeats or not. Like in this case, I've noticed that my sleeve is quite loose, so I'll choose to work a decrease. Now when working these decreases, because our stitch count needs to be in multiples of 3 in order to work the stitch pattern, I need to work 3 decreases in a decrease round. So to work, I'll work my first decrease right at the start, then towards the center of that sleeve right here, I'll work another decrease, and as I get to the end, the last 2 stitches, I'll work a decrease. So that's the way I work decreases in the decrease rounds. So to work that first decrease, it's yarn over, insert your hook into the stitch, pull up a loop, insert your hook into the next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, go through 3 loops on the hook, yarn over, go through 2 loops on the hook. So that was my first decrease. Then I'll continue on with double crochets until I get to that center of the sleeve. And the way you'd know that you're at the center is when you place the sleeve flat down, and on the other side here, that would be my center. So continue with double crochets until you get to the center of the sleeve. Like I said, should you feel that you don't need a decrease in this round because maybe the sleeve fits you fine, then don't work the decrease. Only work decreases when you feel that, yes, okay, I need to tighten up on the sleeve. Because like generally as you get, once you get over past the elbow on the sleeve, you need to work a decrease, because as you're getting towards the wrist, you may need to work another decrease. You will like tighten up on the sleeve as you go down. So let me just show you the second decrease that I want to work. So I'm right there, almost at the center. Okay, so for my second decrease, I'll yarn over, insert the hook into the stitch, pull up a loop, insert the hook into the next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, go through 3 loops on the hook, yarn over, go through 2 loops on the hook. So then it's continue with double crochets until you get to the last 2 stitches before the end. I've continued on with the sleeve, working as many rounds, the repeat of round 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 as need be to get to my wrist. Now, I haven't worked those repeats for those decreases for in every round 5 repeat. In my case, I worked it right at the start. I worked a decrease in that round 5, and then in the next round 5 repeat I worked a decrease, whereas in my third round 5 repeat I didn't work a decrease, and then it was my next round 5 repeat I worked a decrease, and thereafter there were no decreases to get to the length that I needed my sleeve at. Moving on to the edging on the sleeve. So for the first round of the edging, it's chain 3, and here we'll work front post double crochets alternating with back post double crochets. So to work a front post double crochet, it's yarn over, insert the hook through that post of the stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, go through 2 loops on the hook, yarn over, go through 2 loops on the hook. And for a back post double crochet, it's yarn over, insert the hook through over that post of the stitch, but this time we're going from behind the stitch and into that post and over, pull up a loop, yarn over, go through 2 loops on the hook, yarn over, go through 2 loops on the hook. And you'll continue alternating between the 2 stitches to the end of the round. I'm at the end of round 1, so to end the round, it's slip stitch into the 3rd chain from chain 3 to join. Round 2, chain 3, and once again we'll work front post double crochets alternating with back post double crochets. So where we've worked our front post double crochet, we'll work a front post, and where we've worked a back post double crochet in the previous round, we'll work a back post double crochet. So here goes. That was a front post, and here's a back post, and you'll continue to the end of the round. I've completed the sleeve edging and I've worked 3 rounds in total. So for round 2 I slip stitched into the 3rd chain to join, and round 3 was chain 3, front post double crochet, back post double crochet, and I continued alternating between the 2 stitches. I then slip stitched into the 3rd chain to join at the end, and I fastened off and cut off the excess yarn. Now we'll edge the entire cardigan along the opening of the cardigan and the top part of the hoodie. So I'm beginning right at from the hoodie, and I'm working all around. You can begin wherever you choose to, that doesn't really matter. But like I said, I'll begin here. So it's just attach yarn along the edge of the cardigan, chain 3. And for my first round, I'll work double crochets all around the opening of the cardigan. So sometimes you'll find that there's no actual stitches to work with from the rounds before. Like if you look at the hoodie part, there are no actual stitches to work. So I'm just going to work those double crochets as evenly as possible all around the cardigan. So I've completed the edging to the front opening and the hoodie of the cardigan. And all I did was, for that round one where I had worked the double crochets, I slip stitched into the third chain to join, and then just as I had done worked the sleeve edging, I worked the remaining part of the edging with the chain 3, and I alternated between front post back double crochets and back post double crochets, and I repeated that for about 5 times to get a nice thick edging. You'll see that this edging runs all along from the top of the hoodie, going all the way down the front opening of the cardigan on both sides, and running along the bottom edge of the cardigan as well. So I worked all those rounds in one continuous round, and it's quite a long round, but yes, you'll work it all around the cardigan, and that's how you'd edge the cardigan. So to complete the cardigan, we'll add pockets, and what I've done here for the pocket is I've chained 24 plus 1, just as I had done at the start for my foundation chain where I had made that swatch. So in this case for the pocket, it's just 24 plus 1 chains, and then I worked round 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and then again I repeated round 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 until I got the length of the pocket that I wanted and with my width of the pocket. So to attach the pocket, which I've already done one here, as you see, you need to align the pocket to where you want it at, and the best way to get that done is to actually fit on the cardigan and see where you get the most comfortable fit on the pocket. So I did leave a long tail end on the pocket to help with the seaming of the pocket. I'm going to sew along the 3 edges of the pocket, the side, the bottom edge, and the side, leaving the top end opened. So here, just attach, align your pocket well and seam along the edges. So that's the pocket all done. All that's left to do now is to weave in all those ends, and there you have it, the cardigan all ready. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial.